For nearly 4 months, there have been protests in Hong Kong against eroding freedoms and against an extradition bill which would allow the city to send suspects to stand trial in China. Now, earlier this month, a group of musicians were calling on the people of Taiwan to join in protests here in Taiwan this weekend in solidarity with the protesters in Hong Kong. Let's have a look.
A group of high-profile musicians is calling on people in Taiwan to take to the streets on September 29th to show support for the people of Hong Kong. Hong Kong singer Denise Ho says the people of Hong Kong have been protesting for almost 100 days against an authoritarian government. The protesters are demanding amnesty for protesters, Carrie Lam's resignation, universal suffrage, and an independent inquiry into police brutality. Ho says that these problems affect people not just in Hong Kong, but also in Taiwan. She says China is even oppressing people in the field of music. Over 100 civic groups in Taiwan are planning to show their support for Hong Kong and demonstrate in Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung on September 29th. Today, Hong Kong-based columnist and renowned journalist Frank Ching tells us what he thinks China may do to deal with the protests in Hong Kong. Now, Ching opened the Wall Street Journal Bureau in Beijing in 1979 and is a professor at Chinese University of Hong Kong. He tells us what he thinks may happen in Hong Kong on National Day.
The Hong Kong government is going to have a flag-raising ceremony at 8 o'clock in the morning, followed by a reception. And I think the protesters will try to disrupt the flag-raising and the reception. This is what happened on July 1st. July 1st was the 22nd anniversary of the return of Hong Kong to China by the British. And at that time, there were so many protesters around that the Hong Kong government was afraid they would not be able to have a peaceful flag-raising ceremony and so forth. And they moved everything indoors.
Well, what about Beijing? Do you think that they would resort to using the military to crack down on these protesters?
Beijing, for some weeks now, has been threatening to do just that. As you know, they've been holding exercises across the border in Shenzhen of the People's Armed Police and of the PLA. And I think that it's been mainly aimed at intimidating people in Hong Kong.
Right.
So far, they haven't sent any troops across, but of course, they already have a garrison in Hong Kong. But the Hong Kong garrison has not come out into the streets, and the protesters so far have not provoked the garrison. You know, they've gone to the liaison office and defaced the Chinese national emblem, and the Chinese government was very angry at that. But the protests so far have not gone so far as to go to the PLA headquarters.
Oh, that would be pretty crazy. That'd be asking for it, right?
Yes. So I think that so far China has shown great restraint, certainly much greater restraint than I had expected originally.
So do you fear that one day, you know, the military may crack down on the protests?
It is possible, but at this point it seems unlikely. For some time I've been saying they won't do anything before the 70th anniversary National Day, because they want a peaceful environment in which they can have a big celebration. Now it looks to me like even after National Day, they will not send troops in if they think the Hong Kong police can handle it. They would much rather Hong Kong handle the job itself. And the chief executive, Carrie Lam, gave a private talk to some people, and the private talk became public. There was a video that somebody, audio that was leaked out. And there she said that China will not send the PLA in, that they are afraid of the ramifications, that they're afraid that it will affect their image. Like China has created this image of itself now as a big, responsible power. And if they send troops in, it will damage that image. So they don't want to do that. And I think that from Hong Kong's standpoint, That's very good.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, so China wants to appear to be a responsible power, then they have to act like a responsible power. There then should be no time constraint, whether it's before October 1st, after October 1st.
So there are over 100 civic groups in Taiwan that are planning protests in support of Hong Kong this Sunday in Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung, north, central, and south of Taiwan. What do you think that's going to add to the situation?
Well, I think it's going to help puff up the protesters in Hong Kong, that they have
Moral support, right?
Yeah, they have allies in Taiwan. China clearly won't like it.
Right.
China doesn't like to deal with like a united front of opposition groups. But on a practical level, it won't really affect one side or the other. I mean, the events in Hong Kong will continue to take place, except that the protesters will feel that they are not isolated.
They're
that
not
they have
alone.
supporters outside of Hong Kong as well.